And we are back. I know that you have missed us. I've had a break. I'm on my maybe third season of my personal show. But one of the inserts of the show is obviously something that people have been clamoring about, and this is the intimate conversations with Dr. Wow, doctor of doctor, and of course a professor of psychiatry for more than 40 years. And I also heard, no, Dr. Agnes, that, that for some people that probably they don't know and maybe they just want more information about your background. We know that in your one of the things that in your laurel is being a veteran in the lecture in the circuit in that circuit the lecture circuit. How many years have you had this, Dr. Agnes?
Well, I have probably to my credit more than 300 speaking engagements in at medical conventions and other occasions. So that's quite a lot, if you are to speak at a medical convention or a national convention of sorts.
And also, but one thing that's very admirable about you is that I know that you've been a lecturer and a professor, but you're very much so like a student as well. There's always this childlike wonder in your eyes that you always come from a clean slate, like you also
Yeah.
don't know. Now, where do you get this?
Actually,
Maybe
I'm learning from you also,
no, but that's a great thing about that's why I admire you, is because even though you have that under your belt, and you have this experience, is that you're able to take criticisms, or you are able to take probably some critiques from people, from our colleagues or our friends or family, and you're able
Mhm.
to move on from that. How do you, maybe it's a great start of question, how do you take criticisms? How do you take uh, 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 all these things that maybe, for some people may be something that's negative, but how do you turn that critique to improve yourself?
Well, it's there are always different points of views, right? I mean, there are many angles wherein you can see one thing, and it's a welcome thing for me to be told about a certain perspective. Okay, and I find that very refreshing, and I don't really mind about making it into something that's negative because it could be the truth, right? I mean, they can be speaking from their point of view, and it's always good to listen to
Yeah,
them.
we also know that there's so many truths. Our thoughts are not actually facts. So these are just, maybe it's a good generalization that, when people will always have their own opinion, and people will always have their critique, and then people will have their thing to say. But kasi, di ba, may kasabihan na ano ba yun? Have you ever remember that saying that, ano ba yun? Sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words will never hurt me. Is that true? Because I know that words can hurt.
It is more hurting to say uh, something that's intentionally made to crush someone. Like in relationships, if someone knows that that is your weak point and rubs it in, it's like putting salt into a wound. Then that's really mean.
So
So if
so
someone is just pointing out something from her point of view, that's not bad, right?
yeah. So maybe, going back to where we started, so that we can keep it in that yeah, in that topic. So when you are in your life, in the many years that you have experienced, can you say you have learned, because you have learned to, let's say, take jabs, and when people take jabs at you, or in you or on you, not physically, but you know, or not necessarily jabs, maybe just critiques to help you improve. You've learned how to uh, ride the tide, kumbaga. You've learned how to 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 dance with it. Have you?
Yeah, what's important is you really have to be in touch with realities, right? So, for example, somebody tells me, you know, you'd look better with mustard color. So I go and try a mustard color on me. But then when I look at it through my own point of view, it doesn't look as good. Then I don't wear mustard color. See, that's the thing. You accept and then you can reject. That's what makes us human is we have the right of choices, right?
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
So if you feel good about something, as long as you're not hurting anyone or stepping on anyone's toes, I should hope that we are free to do whatever we want to do rather than be constrained. And that was what I was actually talking about last time is it's so hard to explain the woman's sexuality because it's not really being talked about at all. And that's one of my well I guess it's one of my mission is to at least speak for women rather than not because it's really a male dominated world sometimes. So there, so that's why I really am always going back to the woman thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Haven't
So,
you noticed?
so
Yeah.
maybe personally also, since you have had these much experience, so are you saying that you've already developed some sort of a protection or like an invisible wall when when people are trying to get at you? Have you learned how to, or you also still get hurt because you're always going to be human after all?
I only get hurt when a person says something that's really meant to hurt me. And I am not a stone, I am still human. So I can still get some kind of hurt, but it only lasts for about maybe give me an hour and and I'll get over it. Give me
Yeah,
an hour to get over it and I'll be fine. But then also give me an hour to assess someone and I will be able to do it. Just
yeah,
give me that much time. Because you know what? It's so hard to waste time. You know, even feeling bad, you're wasting time, actually.
yeah.
Because there are other things you can do in this world.
Yeah, I mean, it is tiring as we know that, but I guess because when we were younger, we were more reactive, meaning we want more to react on the hurt. So people's tendency is to just react to it and get swallowed in a whirlpool of this madness, right? Or
Yes,
this
yes.
feeling.
That's
But
why it's hard to be a child. It's hard to be a child because your world depends on the opinion of others. It's only when you start getting to be a teenager that you start realizing your sense of self. And that's why it's very important for most teenagers to rebel, you know, rather than be a someone who's obeying everything, then he cannot get a sense of self. So I would appreciate a teenager that's rebellious rather than someone who's just following everything. See, because they need to individuate. You know, humans have to have their own individual.
pero pwede ding
Uh,
you can still
mm.
be 50 and be still think that you're a teenager, right? Because if you
Well,
actually
that's
there are people who actually love the stride or that kind of drama. Am I correct?
well. I guess you always have to have that something that is the child in you. But then at the same time, your childhood always plays it out in adulthood. So you have to be able to get over that kind of hump. You have to find your own individual self, okay? But at least also retaining that innocence, that childlike wonderment. To me, that is very important to me. I'm always like a child, actually. I'm always like a child. It's weird. That's probably what makes me a little bit, not quite an old person yet, because I'm always, the simple things, I laugh at them, etc. It's,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You are child, but let's make a difference with that. A childlike and childish. Iba yun, ha?
yeah, those
Oo.
are two different
O
things.
sige, ano, how do you define child?
Childish is some kind of a retarded development. Childlike is that thing, that wonderment. You're always in awe at discovering something, everything. There are so many things to learn and discover and experience in this world. But if you never do, then you're a stunted uh, human. And you're always under the safety of institutions. And I always say to my students, come on, you're all institutionalized. And they get really a bit, that's what makes them think, is when I say to them, you are all institutionalized. See, you all look the same, you have the same uniform, etc., etc. I can't see anyone here that's an individual. So that's why when I lectured, my students are always, eager, because I challenge their belief systems, and I make them think. I don't just give them facts or lectures. I always want them to think. And lo and behold, they discover that I'm telling the truth.
Could that
Sometimes
be,
they
yeah.
sometimes in my lectures, one girl would come after me and would be crying. Others would, they always follow me after my lecture because they couldn't get enough. And no one is really telling them these things. See? So, where were we?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So
we
would that was you could that be cultural? Is that because I mean, in our culture it's frowned upon. You have to be abide by certain rules, or you don't want to call too much attention on yourself. Could that be something that's passed on, constructs that have been passed on by our ancestors, or our grandparents or grandparents' parents? That you in our culture, that modesty is always not, so this still in line in being, that being, or that whole institutionalized thing. So we're programmed to all look the same, or not to, yeah, I think you get what I mean, that you don't want to call too much attention on yourself, or you don't want to pursue individualism. Is
Right,
that
because there's really a spectrum to that, okay? You cannot be institutionalized in the sense that you lose your individuality. You can always merge with the crowd and do whatever they want to do, but you always must have your own sense of self. That is very important, actually. So, yes, of course, it's your upbringing, it's your culture, but you have to be able to go beyond those, as long as you're not doing something that's criminal, right? I draw the line between something that's already unacceptable and something that is still probably even better, if you follow your own convictions and principles, right? You have to have those things. Otherwise, you're scattered. As they say, scattered brain. Something like that. So you
mm,
must always have a core self. Otherwise, you're bound to be susceptible to all kinds of disorders, and you can break down if you don't have a strong core self.
okay? So I have a question. So I guess we've come to this century where people I think for the past years, or maybe even a decade, people have been, because of the boom of the internet, and people, there's so much information out there. Um, and then people are also saying and celebrating people who you need to celebrate your weirdness, your own individuality, your own self, and accept all that. This is what society tells us. And then you realize that there are some certain characters who are more, uh, who get more mileage in, for example, in the news. And then you realize people also have this mob lynch mentality when they don't particularly like a person. So no, you can't be weird. So people are telling you two things. One is that embrace your weirdness, embrace yourself. And once people do that, people will, why, how come, it's also people's tendency to judge that person because it does not fit their mold, because you can't be that weird. How does that sit with you?
Well, I prefer to be an eccentric person,
So
So
okay, okay,
being eccentric is not necessarily weird.
okay. Sige. Because
Oh,
I think eccentric is, this is a great topic, because eccentric might be a clinical term, but for a lot of young people, eccentricity is weirdness. No, so this is
right, right.
when you
But
say
that's not the same.
correct, but because,
Yes.
for a lack of a better term, for the young people, they say, okay, let's just use the word, for because we sort of like we're in the same era somehow. Eccentricity is, you can embrace your eccentricity, but if you show your eccentricity, people will also judge your eccentricity and may not like your eccentricity.
Yeah, there's a thin line between weirdness and eccentricity, see? So you must really be able to see that thin line because you can easily fluctuate into the weird part. If you say weird, that's already a bit like pathological. Eccentric is just being you, right?
Mhm.
It's just that you're different. You're different. You march to your
I
own
guess,
beat.
sige,
Yeah.
maybe you can help me understand that, because
Mm-hmm.
so for me, okay, so straight line is something that we aim to have, like, we, we have our you know we have our set, and we wake up, and then we go from A point to B. So something that's eccentric will go off that line, right? Is that what?
Yes, yes.
Diba? So,
You
but
go
then
off, but not too far off.
okay, so ganun lang, pitik lang.
And
Okay,
just that you're not on that line,
yes. So,
but you're not far away from a certain line.
because when you embrace your totality, my question is, when you embrace that and accept that, wouldn't that help you move forward rather than say that you can't do, di ba? For example, if I have a tendency, for example, na magmura, or to cuss every single sentence, I know that, I shouldn't, but sometimes you go with that struggle, perhaps, until the very end, but then, people get affected, because it brings some, cussing is people have different, they get affected with that differently. So is it better for me to accept that and move on, or should I just sweep it under the rug? Or maybe acknowledgement is better. What is a better treatment for that?
Well,
Not
you
treatment,
see,
no. What can we, how do you see that?
you have to be able to distinguish what is social. See, Isn't it? In the beginnings of our conversations, I said socializing
Mm.
is putting up a certain kind of persona that would be socially acceptable, right?
Mm.
Meaning you cannot be farting or urinating
In public.
in the middle of a party, for example,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
isn't it?
Yes, yes, yes.
See,
So,
so
so I guess
you
going back to that question, do,
yeah, there is a limit to your
okay.
deviation. If you look at the normal curve, it goes like that. So you're at the standard deviations here at the end. The normal is the 75% of the population of any group. So if in one group, it 75% of people are cussers, for example, that's
Mm.
normal to them, isn't it?
Mm.
Now, cussing is also you risk being socially ostracized because it offends others, right? So that's the social context. Now, you also have an internal self, and you have your own roles. See? So while you are developing your own self rules, you also have to be aware that you are in a social matrix, that you cannot be doing anything you want that's offensive to others behaviorally and verbally, right? Cussing is not accepted, of course, in most of society, isn't it?
Mm.
Pero if you find that a lot of people are cursing, then it doesn't become as offensive,
Mm,
right?
mm, mm,
So
mm.
you normalize a certain behavior if
Yeah.
most of the people in that group are doing it. So we cannot really be too judgmental because everything, behavior is really defined by societal constraints and rules. So as long as you are not going beyond what is acceptable, you are free. You are free. I should hope so, right? Rather than not. Example, again, in a marriage, karamihan, most of the time, if one of the couple or the married couple talks to another, if a woman talks to another guy in front of her husband, that's a no-no to most husbands, isn't it?
Maybe in
If you,
conservative
yeah,
relationships, yes.
that's a constraint.
Mm, mm,
That's being institutionalized. You're not free. You're not free to merrily hop along life and getting to know other persons, and it doesn't have to be constrained because can you imagine most wives and husbands, they cannot even talk freely to one of the opposite sex. You're constrained, you're constricted by the control of the other partner,
mm, mm,
right?
mm.
So, in many ways, that's being institutionalized.
Okay, going back to that, I think from our very last episode, yes, it's still in line with being institutionalized. So I think you wanted to clarify too about, the stand on uh, the our topic then was about monogamy and polygamy. And
Yes, yes,
yeah,
we right. I was talking about the maximum that a woman can desire in a lifetime is only up to 5 men.
which could be
But
misread, ha? Because
yeah,
baka sabi nila, they're supporting, wow, Dr. Bueno, that's very
oo
progressive.
daw, 5 daw. Kasi sa mga beauty parlors, a friend of mine who went to a beauty parlor and the two hairdressers were talking about me. They were saying something like, ala, okay yan kay doktora, ganyan-ganyan. And I never said anything to that topic. See? So, it would be nice if we can at least clarify that I'm
Yes,
not
yes, yes.
talking about I'm not talking about five men at the same time. There's only one spot in the mind of any person, especially a woman, only one spot at a time in her mind that she can desire. She cannot have more than one man at one time, actually. Not in her mind, not in her heart, not in her vagina,
Mm, mm,
right?
mm, 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 mm.
But maybe to some, well, up to three, maybe, menage a trois, as I was saying. Well, some people like that. That's okay as long as it's in the privacy of their own homes or
Yeah, but
space.
I think there's some, yeah, kasi di ba in some religion it's permitted to have multiple partners.
Well, it's usually because of the dictates of the men, but actually a woman cannot really have two at the same time.
Yeah, but the men can have multiple partners.
That's why nga, see, right?
Oo.
Patriarchy, some kind of
Oo.
something like that.
Yeah.
That's why, as I was saying, since time immemorial, the woman's natural tendency is being hampered by men. And I'm not talking as if I were a feminist. I'm talking for the women. And as I was saying, as a psychiatrist, I deal with the mind. I do believe that uh, a woman can only desire one man at a time. But if circumstances, push her into a point wherein she loses that desire, then give her a little time. And if she meets another man, she can desire another man. That's why siguro in the old days, kinukulong na lang ang mga women kasi maybe the men notice that they are actually sexual, right? I mean, so that's society, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. And so did we clarify what you meant by that? That you are not, but that about multiple partners and being
No,
polygamous.
it's not really multiple partners. It's really one man at a time. And if she gets
In your
married,
lifetime, you're talking about a
yeah, in
long
in in
time.
one's lifetime. But if you get married and you get restrained and constricted and maybe bound or put in a certain place like a house, you are not allowed to go out, etc. She can have only one man in her whole lifetime, right? Because of the institution of marriage.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now, the problem is, in my own experience as a psychotherapist, a lot of women nowadays, because they are now going out of the homes, are having affairs. And it's becoming a modern kind of problem that I see in my clinic. In the old days, you could hardly, see a woman having affairs. It's the men who were having affairs outside of marriage. But as I was saying in our last conversation, the original concept of constraining the woman in the home is to ensure that the kids are the husband's kids, right? But nowadays, since women are now going out into the workforce, they are now being exposed to other men. So that becomes a problem because she eventually also can want another man other than her partner or her husband. So if you are a macho guy or controlling guy, you wouldn't want your wife to be going out to work. You don't want her to go anywhere where you're not there because, any moment she can bump into someone. Wow. See? And it's not her fault because bigla na lang, that's why you say falling in love. You get a little insane. You get a little crazy if you're in love. And I always tell my students that being in love is some kind of pathological dynamic there because you get blinded by your own desires. See?
Yeah, blinded by your own desires. Madami yan if you're I think when you're a teenager and a young adult, you get blinded with lust and desires. But when
See,
you
lust is different from desire.
okay, sige, ano yan?
See?
Sige.
Lust is just in your groins.
Correct.
Desire comes from within your self, within your mind, within your brain. See? So those are two different things. It's not lust. No. If you're lustful,
I mean, desire naman comes when it's not being when the void is there, not provided by the husband, right?
sometimes what's really interesting is even if the husband is wow, an ideal husband, everything that you want in a man, but for some reason, women fall for other men when they're exposed to them. I have a lot of patients, women who are supposed to be stable in their marriages. They fall in love with their drivers, with their whoever na nandyan sa paligid. You know, I've seen quite a bit of women who are really disturbed because they fall in love with that gardener, that office mate, that the ones who are more low than the husband. Isn't that peculiar?
No, no, maybe that's a good education for them. That maybe well, it's only construct that they're actually, they're earning less than the husband because at the end of the day, without all our material stuff, we're still flesh. So tanggalan, if the gardener is naked and sweaty in the afternoon, with his
Tapos
shirt
may
off.
6 or 8 packs.
Oh, let's say
O
sabi,
tapos the
yeah,
husband is not.
yeah,
Oh.
that's what I'm saying. It may not. So it's a desire because the gardener is respectful, is mindful, or is polite,
He serves her.
serves her, does gives her the attention. Yes, so
Yes.
that could be desirable. Even may novels have been written about that. Lady Chatterley's Lover.
Yes. Yes, of
Oh,
course.
naba, I'm sure you've read that.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Uh,
Parang malalim yung
Tolstoy's Anna Karenina is a more popular one. Anna Karenina
correct.
by Leo Tolstoy.
Yes, yes,
Well,
yes.
she killed herself out of love. See? So, love for another man other than her husband.
Mm-mm.
So, these things are not being talked about. They come to me in the secrecy of the night.
No,
And
it's maybe talked about. It's been everybody knows it happens, and perhaps it's a good education for people that you may be able to like experience that in your whole lifetime to all of a sudden get you off track and say, why am I so uh, why am I attracted or why am I gravitating towards a certain person? So, you know,
yes,
just
yes.
just just be mindful that it's okay to get tempted, but if you jump into it, well, that's another story.
Well, sometimes it becomes irresistible. That's why in psychotherapy, they are helped in the manner that they understand why they are falling for this guy.
They
So
should
they
just
understand.
oh yes, when temptation is there, you just run. Run, Delilah, run.
Run as fast as you can and get crazy, fall into it, and you also get crazy. You're damned
And
if you
some
do, and you're
that's
damned if
what
you
it is.
don't.
You just have to follow. I mean, you can get into it, and then the action always has consequences, right?
Yes, and I have no problem when two matured individuals decide to be together. What I'm trying to point out is there is no way you can predict or really know that you're not going to bump onto something that makes you go
Gaga.
wow, a little crazy over
Mm.
somebody. even if you're married, and that's what makes people get depressed. So
Yeah,
sometimes doctors cannot cannot treat somebody, so they refer him or her to me, and lo and behold, they have secrets, and that's why they get physically ill. They get literally physically ill.
listen, all songs have been written about this, novels
Yes.
have been written about this. It's a human folly. We are, marupok, it makes us human. It's great though that you have a little bit of understanding that this is what people go through, and and people experience this, and rather than
That's where love comes in. That is where love comes in. Is
Alen.
is having the capacity to understand the other person and not be riled up over it and become berserk and do all kinds of bad behavior because of it,
Correct. I mean,
right?
I think honestly, I think it's a very thin line, not a thin line, but it goes there. No, so you do have to recognize your desire, but not, but to go be beyond it, and see that if you have fallen in love, and perhaps you can see it, go above it, and so you can see the bigger picture, because falling in love does not mean, or loving somebody does not mean consuming. You can still love from afar. Pwede ka din mag-unrequited love. Hindi ba?
Oh yes, oh yes, of course.
O, di ba?
But true love is really
Wala, undeniable
something.
yan.
Well, I believe that if you love somebody, you don't possess that somebody, you don't own that
Correct.
somebody.
You
That
don't
if you
own.
can allow the other person to be free, you stand a chance that she's not or he's not going to fall for another one. See, the more you constrain someone or restrain someone, the more that you're pushing them towards wanting another guy or another woman.
Yeah.
But with the men, it's different. It's more like they're wired to really be, immediately sexually attracted to someone because of the testosterone. So it becomes also a chemical thing,
Mm.
right?
That's why it's just so nice to just come into maturity, because those things also fall. I mean, later on, women get their menopause and men get their menopause too. In some way or another, you lose your libido, but you can be creative and then experience the, you seem to have more understanding of how animalistic you were when you were young.
Well, because that's because your testosterone has gone down.
Oo.
But the libido or the mind does not age. Actually, it doesn't
Mm,
age. It's just the body that ages.
yeah.
So you can still
Everything goes and spiral down.
south. Everything goes south as you
Yeah.
grow older.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that the libido ages or gets old.
No, yeah, yeah. That's part
I,
of
I I
the
feel that as long as you're alive, you can still be in
make.
love, you can still desire.
I believe that. I believe that
Yes.
too. Well, this has been a very enlightening love topic. I didn't know that this was going to turn around and going to talk about the novels and poetry and what have you. And with this conversation, we are hoping to move forward with, intimate conversations with our favorite professor of psychiatry. And of course, um, perhaps because of this topic, it's nice to explore this thing and maybe communicate this with somebody that you have a relationship with, whether it be a sister or a brother or a parent or a partner,
Mhm.
and express the love condition. Express that, because I just realized, and I'm sure you also experienced this, that with everything that's happening right before our very eyes, that sometimes we don't know when we exit the world that we live in, and we don't know how we're going to exit. It's going to be a surprise. So
Yes,
it's
yes,
it's nice being able to, because you had mentioned in our conversation a few minutes earlier that you just said that, that love is the one that's, you know that could never be denied. And and love is has no bound. It's boundless. So you when you got it, you got to share it. Is that a good advice?
yes. That's a very good advice. And, love is the most misused, abused term in this world. You have to really know what it is, because, you cannot just say, I love you, if you don't really know what it is.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
it's very much abused,
yeah,
the
it
word
is.
love.
It is, isn't
Mm.
it? And even when we had started this conversation, maybe this is a good thing to wrap, is that, if when you have love in your life, and especially a love to yourself, you're able to ward off, I think, you're able to ward off, jabs that are people take on you, even the people that you love. You're able to say, okay, well, I have love for you. It in Christian terms, in biblical terms, if they say that if somebody slaps you, you turn the other cheek. But maybe not even turning the cheek, but being able to say, just if you have profound love from that person who did that to you, or person that had hurt you, you're able to, generate or transmit the love just by being there without even saying anything, right?
That's right. Right.
Right.
Yes.
And sometimes,
Yes, but it's very difficult to achieve the capacity to love in that way, Jake. You
mm,
really need to go through a lot before you reach that point. And you may spend your whole lifetime trying to achieve that, because, it's very difficult to be with someone and you just let them be free. They
mm,
are free to do what they want. That's love. Is you are not asking them to do what you want, but what they want to do. That is
yeah.
very difficult to achieve. It takes a lot of maturity and a lot of love.
Wow. You got a little bit emotional there.
Of course, yes, because it's a lifetime's pursuit for me. This love that is very hard to have. you know so what I would the way I want to say it is, if you love someone, you let them free. You
Mm,
don't own them. You don't uh, you don't impose on yourself. To me, that's love. Is watching someone you care about fly and soar. And even if you're left behind, you want to watch him soar up into the skies. Am I getting poetic?
oo. Oo, ano na. Yes.
Very difficult.
Sore.
Jake, in my life, I've had to set someone free because I love him. See, that's my own mantra all the time. I never question. I never want to possess. But if I see that, he's no longer happy with me, then I let him go happily wherever he wants to go. See? But you cannot straddle. That's the point with me.
No. Yes,
You
because
cannot straddle. You have to make a decision.
you
Me or go. Right?
yes, because
Right?
if that person had stayed, that would probably have killed you, right?
Right.
It would have
Yes.
probably killed you, because if the person doesn't want to stay, but he's trapped to be there, or he cannot
Right. Isn't
move.
that a very unhappy, miserable
That you're
existence?
gonna be miserable too. So maybe
Yes.
yes, because you have to let go and see, if the person is happy, then you are happy, and perhaps that gives you some sort of like peace, right?
It's very peaceful, Jake, to let
Okay.
someone go, actually, because
Mm,
you want to be with someone who really wants to be with you, right? And if
exactly.
they don't want you anymore, then it's time to talk. Come on. Life is ticking. You might just meet someone better,
Yeah.
right? So,
I,
come
I
on.
I used to experience that all the time about 10 years ago when
Mhm.
I used to hail taxi cabs. There was no Grab or Uber then. So you have to hail cabs from Quezon City, agawan yan lagi. And
Mm.
you meet the most colorful taxi drivers, and you don't want to be riding a taxi ride with a miserable taxi driver who doesn't want you to be there, who don't want you as a customer, because they
Yeah.
always they always ask you, where do you want to go? And if I say Makati, and I say no, they don't want to go to Makati, I said, and then you have to haggle with it. But if you persuade that person to make you ride that taxi cab, that will be the most miserable ride of your life.
Right. You get tensed up, your blood pressure goes up. He does all the things that would make you uncomfortable, etc.,
Correct.
etc.
That
Right?
because I've experienced that. I persuaded my I fought for my right. I said you have to bring me to Makati. I don't care. I'm gonna pay you double. But my goodness, the most miserable 40-minute or 2 hour ride. Can you imagine? 2 hour ride from Quezon
Yes,
City to
that's
Makati.
see, people are so good in being passive aggressive,
Yeah,
meaning they do everything that would make you miserable because they really don't want you. They don't have if we go back to relationships, they are not man enough or woman enough to just say, goodbye, darling, I don't want you anymore.
well,
Go,
on that,
please. Walk away, please go.
okay. Well, on that note, well, I think it's a good good conversation we've had, and we had this opportunity again to be able to, explore things that, real talk, real intimate conversations,
Mhm.
and it helps that, somebody in your category or in your experience are able to express and give us some enlightenment in such topics. Thank you very much, Dr. Agnes.
Don't worry about it. De nada. By the
Then,
way, I like your new haircut.
yeah, I've had it for 8 months. I just needed to like cut
It,
it
it should
off.
be a little bit longer though.
Yeah, I know. Well, a couple
Just a
of months,
little bit.
a couple
I
of
like
months.
it, I like it without the gel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I need to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
thank
You
you,
look
thank
more
you.
you look more free.
I
You're
know.
not bound. You're not bound by a gel.
That's true. I hate
Oh
putting
my.
stuff in my hair, really. Anyway, so
Okay.
again, let's wrap this conversation. It's been a lovely time, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
be able to publish this in November, and you'll be catching this in November. In the subsequent weeks, we'll be having Dr. Agnes Bueno every week. Okay,
Okay.
once a week. So thank you very much, and
Okay.
have a great evening.
You too.
Hang in there.